Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. I am Misty Winston, and I am joined today by someone who attempted to take the lead and advice of Ralph Nader in trying to hold members of Congress accountable and started a website in order to do so. So today we are joined by Skip Moyer. Skip, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Misty.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, you have like a really interesting kind of origin story, if you will, your political background. Can you just kind of let our audience know a little bit about who you are and how you kind of got to this place?
Sure. I guess just before 2000, or I guess 1996, I was pretty much into. I really gave. I can't think of his name. It was the candidate that ran the third party in '96.
In 96? Oh,
96. That's on tip of my tongue. Anyway, in 2000, I stumbled on the Green Party. I started to go to meetings. A friend of mine needed a ride, and I kept, taking him to meetings, and I really learned a lot of stuff, and I kept up with it. And through a lot of the state meetings and the local meetings, I started to get a whole different perspective of what government was about. And even though as a kid, I knew who Ralph Nader was, but this was a whole new person that I remember. And he really made a lot of sense and really had a lot of interesting things to say and was honest about ideas. And so I was pretty much found him really interesting. So in 2000, I was out there collecting signatures for him to get on the ballot. And I stayed with the Green Party for a number of years and collected signatures. And at one point, there was a person running for governor as a Green, and when he ran, and I was collecting signatures for him, I collected signatures for myself. So for state rep, and that was kind of like, let's see where this goes. I don't know exactly, how this is going to look. So I put the signatures together, and I was allowed to get on. And I really learned that I could really hone my message after talking to people after a month or two, because as a candidate with an independent party, you had to talk to a lot of people and have them sign a petition, and so many would ask questions, and that really did help me sort of understand how to talk with them and figure out things that I didn't know, or they would ask me something I didn't know, and I had to go find out. So I became a much stronger candidate as the time went on. But as a Green Party candidate, or as a third party candidate, there's little chance that you can get elected. And I look back and I don't think I'd ever want to be elected, because I think that would suffer greatly if I had to sit in there with many of those people. So I was glad to have done it, and I did it twice. Just for something to do. I didn't spend a lot of money. I just pretty much got out there and got to talking to people. And then in 2003, Ross Perot was the one that ran in 1996.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, in 2003, a friend of mine called me and said that they wanted to put a nuclear irradiator in our township. So not knowing much about it, I looked around, and there was a primary, and a couple of us went to the primary and collected signatures, and I was surprised that nobody knew about it, including myself. And it became a bigger, it's something that grew over the summer. It was like 10 of us, and grew to over 400, and there was a lot of pretty angry people, mostly because they didn't know, and mostly because a lot of people were concerned about their property values, that if this is a nuclear irradiator, which was going to radiate food, if something were to happen and people would have to disclose that it was there, they thought that their property values would plummet. So, but there was also people who just didn't like the idea of being able to use, putting a nuclear radiator in a suburban township. So that grew, and that was exciting, but it was also it was so big that it was sometimes hard to handle. And I suspect we got infiltrated at some point. Things started to go awry. We couldn't figure out why, and then it's sort of, we started to figure out that there were a couple people really causing trouble. So, we didn't like it, but it was good to see, and I experienced it. And it adds to my understanding of what we should be doing today, um, as we organize ourselves. That it's something we have to be wary of, that there are forces out there that are going to try to either smear you or they're going to criticize you for whatever. So just be prepared that that's going to happen.
Yes.
Anyway, to make a long story short, the radiator, it came in, the nuclear material came in, but then it was eventually taken out. And as far as I know, it's still not there, but who knows? It could still be there.
Yeah.
And from there,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
So that was a real learning process, and I really felt that we really did bring the community together, and went through a lot of things on that. So, and then I continued to run. I ran as a green afterwards just for something to do. I didn't want to sit around. I had the time, and I wanted to just see what I could stir up. So I did that.
I like a good shit stir, so I enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
So we should mention that the website that you started, that's kind of an amalgamation of ideas that you've come up with over the course of your life. It's the Congressional Watchdog Central. Yes. And so basically this came in part from Ralph Nader's books, correct?
Yes, I went down, I saw Ralph in Philadelphia. He was talking about Unstoppable, and he was talking about congressional watchdog districts, which I thought that was excellent. He was talking about 300 people in each district, to be a pain in the ass to all the politicians to keep pressure on them. And that's something that we don't have. We don't have any pressure on politicians today.
No.
And they just get away with all kinds of crap.
None whatsoever. He also talks about that book a little bit more in How the Rats Took Over
I don't know,
Congress.
Something like that.
I'm so bad at titles.
I forget the title.
Yeah. But I actually, I read that book, and I'm not somebody who really believes in electoral politics. I never really have. I was always more of like a mutual aid type of gal. And then, I did vote for Barack Obama, which I hate myself for now, in 2008. And then I voted Green in 2012. I supported Bernie in 2016 and then voted Green. And then I'm done now voting. I'm not going to bother with it anymore. Yeah. But the idea that Ralph has is really, really simple and really, really smart. It really doesn't take much. As most people probably know, you really don't need that much of the population to cause some problems for people in power. And so if you put, a few hundred dedicated people in, not even every congressional district, if you just put them in some really key districts and you're very strategic about it, you can get some things done. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how that kind of inspired you, and then how you decided to come up with a website in order to try to make some of those things happen?
Sure. First it was the idea that Nader, gave about having 300 people in a district. He talked about having storefronts, which I felt that that would have cost money. And whenever you put money in an organizing idea, it's like putting poison out there. People have a reason to complain. It's never good enough. And so I felt that having to set up something where money was part of the, was part of the plan to be able to stand up to a Congress, I just felt that wasn't a good idea. So the other side of this was the website, or the RSA Animate idea. This whole idea of mutual knowledge and how we understand, or the distinction between individual knowledge and mutual knowledge. And if you want to try to put this one clip together, I think it explains the idea fairly well.
Yeah, I'm going to, forgive me, everybody, because you guys know I'm technologically challenged, so this may or may not go well.
Okay.
So let me, I think you had it keyed up at a certain time, didn't you? Let's see here. Okay. So, sorry, everybody. Your girl is not good at this stuff at all.
You're better at it than I am.
I'm so bad. I am so terrible at technology. Oh, we're going to get an ad. That's good. Good times.
Yeah, you get an ad and then it's
Yeah,
gonna.
I'll skip it. No biggie. Okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to attempt to do some technology. If I accomplish this, I'm basically a member of Anonymous, and I will take full credit for all of that. Sleepy Josh knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. Let's share my screen. And let's hope this works. All right, here we go.
Looks good. There it is.
Paradox is a concept that economists and logicians call mutual knowledge, which they distinguish from individual knowledge. In individual knowledge, A knows X and B knows X. In mutual knowledge, A knows X, B knows X, A knows that B knows X, B knows that A knows X, A knows that B knows that A knows X, ad infinitum. And this is a difference that has profound consequences. For example, why is freedom of assembly enshrined as a fundamental right in a democracy? And why are political revolutions often triggered when a crowd gathers in a public square to challenge the president in his palace? Well, it's because when people were at home, everyone knew that they loathed the dictator, but no one knew that other people knew that they knew. Once you assemble in a place where everyone can see everyone else, everyone knows that everyone else knows that everyone else knows that the dictator is loathed, and that gives them the collective power to challenge the authority of the dictator, who otherwise could pick off dissenters one at a time. Another example is that The Emperor's New Clothes is a story about mutual knowledge. When the little boy said the emperor is naked, he wasn't telling anyone anything that they didn't already know, anything that they couldn't see with their own eyeballs. He was nonetheless changing the state of their knowledge, because at that moment, everyone now knew that everyone else knew that everyone else knew. Once again, that gave them the collective power to challenge the dominance of the emperor through their laughter. The moral of the story is that explicit language is an excellent way of creating mutual knowledge. And so here's the hypothesis. Innuendos, even obvious ones, merely provide individual knowledge, whereas direct speech provides mutual knowledge, and relationships are maintained or nullified by a mutual knowledge of the relationship type. So if Harry were to say, would you like to come up and see my etchings? And Sally says no, then Sally knows that she's turned down an overture. And Harry knows that she's turned down a sexual overture. But does Sally know that Harry knows? She could be thinking maybe Harry thinks I'm naive. And does Harry know that Sally knows that he knows? He could be wondering maybe Sally thinks I'm dense. There's no mutual knowledge, and they can maintain the fiction of friendship. Whereas if Harry were to say, would you like to come up and have sex? And Sally turns him down. Now Harry knows that Sally knows that Harry knows that Sally knows. They cannot maintain the fiction of a friendship. And I think this is the basis for our intuition that with overt language, you can't take it back. It's out there.
Thanks.
Okay. Hey, I did it, you guys. Woo!
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I did.
So I think that the relationship we have with government right now is basically a fiction.
Yeah.
You know, they'll tell us that they want to help us. They act like our parents, you know, when they campaign, they pretend like, you know, I'll look out for you and, you know, fight for you and all this stuff. And then when they get elected, they do the exact opposite. So they're exactly, you know, they're actually bad parents. And, you know, not allowing us to have Medicare for all, not giving us, you know, truth, the media being as propagandized as it is, it becomes very difficult for people to get good information. So what I really wanted to do was cut through this fiction. And between Ralph Nader's idea of having, you know, several hundred people in each congressional district, and again, we're not going to get every congressional district, but we don't need everyone. We need, you know, 10, 15 would be probably sufficient to really get started, but there could be others that are building as we do that.
Yeah,
but it does, you're right. So it changes the relationship between the people and politicians, and they can't hide behind it because, you know, a lot of us will write letters or we'll make phone calls, but we don't know how many other people sent letters or made phone calls, and they know that we don't know. So they can just send us a form letter and say, you know, thank you, whatever, you know, for sending me
hear
this
you,
thing.
we
It's a
see
really important
you.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. But if now you have 100 people, all right, within a congressional district, and you add their names and zip codes to a very simple letter. We're not trying to educate politicians about Medicare for all. All we got to say is we want you to support single payer health care, and then ask a question, and then your 100 names and zip codes. So now 100 people know that they sent a message to their representative. The representative knows that there's 100 people that got a message sent, and the people know that the representative knows, and representative knows that the people know, so they can't hide behind that. And so it's basically a virtual demonstration without having to go outside of your house, or a petition on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
And also, by asking the question, now you're asking to have a dialogue. And if they either refuse or they give you something, now we can respond. And I say that, we break groups into about 100. I kind of got that idea. When we did the irradiator thing, that 400 people makes it easy to infiltrate, but 100, having many different groups of 100 or 120, let's say, becomes harder to infiltrate. So instead of, if you have, let's say, 200, you just have two groups in a congressional district, and you coordinate, your ideas. The one thing that Nader talked about in Unstoppable is that you surround your organizing idea around issues, especially issues that both pertain to the left and to the right. And Medicare for All is one of those. There's
Yes.
many, many people who've come to learn that Medicare for All is really a really good idea. And you can really bring a lot of people in. Ending wars is another one. Julian Assange, probably not as much, but I think
We're
there's
getting
plenty of
there.
people.
We're
You're
getting
getting there. I know. And I know there's a lot of propaganda against him, and
Yes.
it really is unfortunate. But I still think, if you have enough people, you'll have enough of a following to be able to make a change there. And really, I think it's the only way we can do it. I think you get into a lot of things on the weekend where you have vigils and stuff, and those are a lot of work, and those are good, and there's good information. I always feel that you might be preaching to the choir, and I don't know how many new people are bringing into it. But if you had 100 people or 200 people in a congressional district, now you have you have sort of ambassadors of these ideas that are around, and if you can go, if you have, let's say, if we had 70 or 80 people in my district who were kind of signed on to this, you can go to people and say, we have an idea where we're going to get Medicare for All. Here's what it is. And as long as they're not the first ones on, I think a lot of people feel much more comfortable participating in something like that.
Yeah,
I'd also feel that the core of these groups should come from like audiences like yours, or the audience of Jimmy Dore, or some of the other ones, because these are the people that get it. They know that Russiagate was a psyop. They know that media is propaganda. You don't have to fight that, and it would be great to be able to know who some of those people are. The process is basically building community, and it doesn't mean you have to meet with people. You can do this online.
Which
It
in the
doesn't mean
time
you
of
can't meet
COVID
with them.
is even better, because right now
Yes.
activists and organizers have had to really kind of try to rethink everything that we do, and try to
Right.
just come up with a whole new game plan. It's getting a little bit easier now. We're able to do some more protests and stuff as some of the, regulations and stuff kind of wind down, and it's becoming less of a intrusive thing. But yeah, it really has changed the game. And that's, you speak about how people write letters and they make phone calls, and I do those things. I do those things knowing that I'm probably not making any difference whatsoever, because
It's a lonely process.
it is. But the way that I see it is I can make about 5 political phone calls in about 7 minutes. You generally don't get to speak to somebody. And if you do, it's just some intern who's taking a message. You get your message out in about 1 minute and you're done. It's a very quick, easy way to attempt to do something. So if I can do 5 political phone calls in, maybe 7 to 10 minutes, that's 7 to 10 minutes of my life that I'm willing to donate in order to, help push my cause. And even if, you know, I just speak to an intern for a couple minutes and that intern then starts questioning, then I won something. You know, that person is now, there are cats all around me freaking out right now. I'm so sorry. They're insane.
It's okay.
So yeah, I really love this idea. I loved it when Ralph came out, talking about, you know, having these kind of strangleholds where you can really make some noise in key congressional districts and try to affect some change. Again, I'm not somebody who really has ever been much for electoral politics. And if there's going to be a way to affect any change in the current system that we have, I think this is probably the best chance that we have.
Sure.
So have you noticed in the time since that you've started this website that there has been some interest in potentially kind of organizing around this idea? I mean, have you seen interest growing at all? Or, I mean, what do you think?
There is interest. I guess I find on Twitter that a lot of people spend a lot of time complaining.
Yes.
There's a lot of like, it should be this way. Why is this? And blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of energy being put out there and not really making any change. And I sometimes try to challenge that. So I do get likes when I post it. They like it. People, I haven't heard anybody complain. It's not overwhelming, but I think the idea needs to get to wider audiences.
Yeah.
And and you know, so that people can say, you know what, this makes sense. And again, if I had 20 or 30 people, let's say, that listen to your show in my congressional district, you know, we could grow that to, you know, 100, because they'll know somebody, you know,
Right.
It's that, and once you have 100, now you can go talk to the, you know, the person who works the cashier at the supermarket, or the person, you know, just people you see, and you can mention this, and all of a sudden you have something to offer. You have a way, you have a path, and it doesn't ask much. It's asking for a name and a zip code, and they don't have to go to a march. You know, marches now and protests, and people get their heads beat in
difficult.
sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah,
people don't want to go to those things.
No.
It's a lot of time, and I don't think they're very effective. I mean, even, you know, Occupy, as good as that was, I mean, what did we really get from it? We got the 1% idea, which is wonderful, but I don't, you know, we didn't really get any change. And I kind of
Occupy
feel that
wasn't
we're out there.
organized enough. They didn't have
Yeah,
it
well,
together enough.
the one thing it had is that it was sustained for
Yes.
a long period of time. And that's this idea. This idea is sustainable. This is
Yes.
something you can do from your home.
Well, and even
This
more
isn't
so than
something-
Occupy, because something like Occupy, you need mutual aid in place first before you can, if
Oh,
you're going
yeah.
to hold
Yeah.
like a sustained, like general strike. People keep saying all the time, we need a general strike. We need a general strike. And they're
Sure.
absolutely right. We need a general strike. We
Yeah.
need a sustained, steadfast general strike that we do not back down from. But in order to do that, we have to be able to take care of the people participating. And that means feeding them,
Right.
feeding their families, paying their bills, making sure that they are able to see a doctor if they need to, making sure that there are a lot of things that need to go into that. And people aren't talking about the before. They're talking about, we need a general strike, but you can't do that until you have mutual aid in place. So a lot of people are putting the cart before the horse. And it's very frustrating to me, because it's just basic common knowledge that if you want to have a sustained strike of any kind, you need to be able to take care of the people participating. And your idea is actually even better, because we don't need anybody to, you know, actively participate in staying home from their jobs. They can do this from their job. They can do it from home. They can do it in their pajamas. All you have to do is be willing to, you know, like you said, give your name and your zip code, sign on to letters to different elected representatives. And that's really it. And then just be willing to kind of work within that group of people to decide what your next plan of action is. And like you said, be wary and mindful of the fact that there are going to be infiltrators all the time. It's an unavoidable fact about being on anything that resembles a left. The right never has to really deal with infiltrators unless it's just people trying to make chaos. But the left is always going to have to deal with infiltration. It's just the nature of the beast. The establishment doesn't want a leftward shift. They will do anything to prevent one. So yeah, that's a tough one. But yeah, I like this idea, because it really does. I find that a lot of people will not get involved in activism because A, it's very very daunting. Trying to figure out what to do, when, where, how to organize, what permits you need, how to advertise it, how to get people involved. That's all very daunting, especially for people who have never done it. And then you have the aspect of the fact that there are a lot of activists out there who are gatekeepers. And if you don't have a certain resume, they don't treat you like you're worth anything, and they don't care about your opinion, and they don't consider you an activist. And to me, that's super self-defeating. If somebody wants to get involved in activism, you should encourage that. There shouldn't be like a, oh yeah, well, how many events have you organized? Or, oh yeah, well, I was at Occupy. Were you there? That's nonsense. You know, everybody should be welcome to the activism space, in my opinion. But yeah, this idea really makes it very simple. It's very basic. It's not something that requires a lot of time or effort. And people are busy. They just don't have it. So
Sure.
yeah, this is a great idea that I think it really has some potential. You know, do you think
I mean, once you have a group of people, I mean, you can divvy up some of the other responsibilities. So let's say, you know, some people will focus on the congressional person, you know, their federal representative. Few people could focus on their state rep or the state senate. A couple of people could focus on U.S. senators, and it's not a lot of work. It's just you're sort of in charge of you know, maintaining a correspondence with these, and you know, letting us know and you know, reporting what you get. It's not a lot of work. And the other thing is that you know, you could have someone who would report back to you, or report back to, you know, any other independent media person who would be interested, and you could add a whole nother segment to your, you know, a whole nother topic to your talk of, this is what's happening in Michigan's 15th district, you know, this is what's happening. So now, and these ideas can be scattered. So, you know, I think the one thing that that's important is that once you put people together, there's a certain amount of creativity. Sometimes it's better than others, but now you can tap into to these voices and to these ideas that we can't now, because we're, you know, it's just me, or especially during COVID, we really can't get together and really have these conversations.
Well, and it's really hard for us. People will always say, "Oh gosh, look at France; they're so amazing." And that France, like, is the Olympic gold medal champion of protesting forever. Like, that's just it. They win. That's it. Like, they're out there dumping literal steaming piles of shit on government buildings. I'm down with that. But what France has that we don't have is the convenience of being a very small country, and we are spread out all across the United States, and it's very, very, very difficult to get people to come to an event. Like, we've held events in Washington, D.C. for Julian Assange, and it's very difficult for people from California, Oregon, New Mexico, Arkansas to get to D.C. For a protest. That's not easy. First, you have to take the time off. You're going to have at least a day of travel, 2 days of travel, most likely, because it's one there, one back. And then you have the days of the event. It's like taking a vacation. And a lot of people just don't have that kind of time, money, resources. It's difficult. You have to find babysitters for your kids, which I have to do. It's very hard. So yeah, I mean, we just don't have the luxury of being within a close proximity to other people who think like us. So this allows us to do kind of those kinds of things without really ever having to leave home or to congregate in groups, which again, during COVID is a great thing. So yeah, I really do think that this idea has some promise. And, you know, I love Ralph Nader. I have some beefs with him about Russiagate, but I'll forgive him because I do love Ralph Nader. But yeah, I think I think that if we start to try to push this out there, we can maybe get some traction with it. Do you think, though, that at this point in the game, seeing what we're seeing from quote unquote progressive politicians, do you think that we have enough time for this kind of engagement to be effective? Because to me, it seems like we are in like crisis mode. Like this, we're out of time. People are dying every single day because we don't have Medicare for all. People across the globe are dying every single day because of our imperialism. You know, people are losing their jobs, their homes. They can't feed their kids. They can't go to a doctor. It's like we are in crunch time. So I don't like to be like a quote unquote accelerationist, but we're done. Like, we don't have any more time. Bernie Sanders screwed us over. The squad has screwed us over. Every attempt to have an elected official who claimed to be fighting for us actually fight for us has failed. So do you think that we have time for this kind of idea to build up support and to be effective in the way that we need it to be?
I don't know how else you would do it. I don't know how you could be effective. You know, you have the vigils for Julian Assange, even in France. where they do have Medicare for all, which that's a whole nother thing that
Yeah.
allows them to do that.
Right.
They marched and marched and marched, and what did they get? I mean, I don't know if what could we possibly do that would change it? And I think times have changed. Protesting, the internet allowed us to grow up. There's a lot of information, a lot of good information, it's bad information, but it allowed us to grow up. And I think now a lot of us can see medical issues. We can check things out about our own health. We can check out things about our own education, about our finances, about, looking into those ideas. We don't need the establishment like we did before. And I think it is about us sort of growing up and recognizing that we don't need, we may not need a president. We may not need a Congress. I know Joe Rogan, makes this thing that, that the presidential race is basically a popularity contest. And if you win the popularity contest, you get to rule the world. And,
well, you don't really, though. You don't really. The president does not matter. I don't know if anything could make that more clear than Donald Trump to Joe Biden. They're the same person. It's the same agenda. It's the same policies. They have nothing to do with what's actually going on. Joe Biden's not making decisions. That's ridiculous. Come on. He can't even tie his shoes.
No, you're right. There's a whole thing in the background going on, and we don't see it. But this is where, people need to be able to stand up. And again, your audience and audiences, some of the other independent media know that. And that's gold. That's stuff that, once you have those people, that's a core that can really, help to educate, that can help to move things going on. I just don't know what else we could do. I mean, you can't protest any harder. And if you do, the police are going to be there and bash your head in.
I mean, we're seeing that right now again in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
I mean, there's now curfews again, and they're, throwing grenades at protesters. And I mean, it's a nightmare. And you're right. I mean, to a certain extent, protest is a great exercise in democracy, but it's very easy for them to ignore us. They don't care.
Yeah, there was hundreds of thousands of people that protested in DC for the Iraq war and for nothing. They still went, and they still did. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I said, Occupy Wall Street too, even though it was a great effort. And I really commend them for all the people that, went out there and really put that together.
Or Standing Rock. I mean, that was months and months of them literally living there. And they just got sprayed with water cannons and, grenades and flashbangs, and, protesters had arms.
And that's why people don't come out. So that now when you see a protest and where you might have seen the hundreds of people come up, now you might see 10 or 15. So the message is that maybe that idea isn't that important. And so that's why I'm not really fond of going out and protest. It doesn't. And also the message isn't always that clear. Some people have different agendas, but if you are able to write in a very brief letter, I mean, I'm saying you keep it brief, because the longer you make a letter to a congressman, and that's just a start. It doesn't mean that you just always do it with letters.
Right. I definitely don't want to discourage people from protesting. Please go protest if you're able to. It may not get the answers that you want for the issue that you're fighting for, but I can guarantee you that when we've been out in DC, people have stopped to talk to us. We've been able to hand out information about Julian Assange. People have honked their horns as they're driving by. It's a visibility thing. It's a public awareness thing. And that's huge, especially in something with Julian Assange where mainstream media doesn't cover it whatsoever. And so you're really fighting back. And when they do, it's nothing but just insane propaganda that's nowhere near the truth. So that's what you're fighting against. So with something like that, that's definitely a worthwhile effort. I love protesting.
And if you have 300 people, if you have a couple hundred people in your congressional district, that's a great platform to build a protest on. I mean, especially, if it's that important, then there'll be people that'll participate in that. I'll know who those people are. They'll know who I am. And so now we can have a dialogue.
Yeah. Do you worry a little bit, because we have seen, I mean, it's been a problem, I mean, basically since the internet was invented, but over the past, certainly the past, I don't know, 4 years, but over the past year, 6 months or so, the censorship online has been unbelievable. I mean, we've seen independent journalists being demonetized, deplatformed, suppressed. The algorithms are insane. I'll finish up a Convo Couch video on YouTube, and then the next on my autoplay is a Rachel Maddow video. Those two things don't go. The algorithm should in no way, shape, or form be force feeding me a Rachel Maddow video after I'm watching Convo Couch. They should be giving me Frank Analysis or Nico or somebody like that. So do you worry that the increased censorship that we've been seeing on the internet will be a problem for something like this?
It is a problem, except I think what it does is it really shows how afraid they are of us.
Yes.
They're scared to death. And I think if we confronted them with an organized effort, I think they crumble. I mean, some will. They'll just, they'll put up a fight for a little bit. But all of a sudden, if they see this really taking hold, I just think they hide behind their power. They hide behind language that, that just sort of keeps people hoping or thinking that they're doing the right thing. And if you call them out on it, I just don't think, I think there's nothing there. I think they're all cowards behind it all.
Yes.
And that's why they do it, because they're afraid that the truth's going to come out. And so they're trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
And I think as a group of people, we can add to that narrative, but with your help and with the help of other independent media.
No, for sure. Independent media right now it's so important. I can't even express how important it is to support and push independent media. And I'm not talking about myself. I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm just some chick in Ohio who happens to have a webcam, some cool friends, and ideas that I care about. But I am always willing to push, good ideas. But independent media right now is so unbelievably vital. The Julian Assange case has really laid it bare that the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, the deep state, the establishment, whatever, they want full narrative control. They want to control every piece of information that you are allowed to see, read, hear, all of it. And these are the people that have lied us into numerous wars, and they lie to us constantly about everything all day long. It terrifies me that we're being forced into a position where they will now have access or have the ability to control all of our access to all information. And we will not be able to examine anything outside the approved, the improved narrative. And Noam Chomsky talks about that all the time. They, shrink down the approved, socially acceptable range of debate. And then that's it. You just get to speak here. And if you step out of line, then they ostracize you and demonize you and smear you. And you're not allowed to talk about those things. And that window, that acceptable level of debate is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in front of our eyes. And so, yes, I think independent media is going to be unbelievably vital moving forward. So I always encourage people to support independent media. I will continue to do that. It's super important. So yeah.
I think Jimmy Dore sort of said it when he says, now that I see propaganda, I can't unsee it.
I know.
And so now when I see it, but the thing is, I have friends that don't.
Yeah.
The friends that are still,
it's
that
hard.
I can't. Yeah. And
it's
so
hard.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's hard because people from birth in this country, you are propagandized, and it surrounds you everywhere. It's in your television commercials. It's in the newspaper. It's in the doctor's office waiting room. It's when you go to get your oil changed. There's propaganda surrounding you constantly. And it's really difficult, I think, for anybody to take a look at your life and realize that everything you thought you knew is bullshit. That's a really heavy concept for people to wrap their heads around. And it takes a lot for people to be willing to accept that reality. And so I understand that there's like a level of fear, and there's a level of just the unknown and not wanting to really understand and recognize the reality of how bad it is. But we need people to be willing to at least try to see what's happening around them, because we're really in a bad spot. And I think I tell my husband all the time, like you said, Jimmy Dore says that once you can recognize propaganda, there's no way you can unsee it. And I tell my husband all the time, once you know, you can't unknow. Like there's no going back. And that's just it. And you now know the way things are, and everything is now changed. So once we get people over that hump, I think that's, really crucial. And
I think an idea like this, though, empowers people. I mean, once people recognize, just like in the video, that they see that there's a number of people who think like they do, all of a sudden they feel energized, I think, and they feel like they're part of something, and they feel like they can make a difference. So even though, let's say we write a letter, or we start doing this thing with Medicare for All, or we do it for the end the wars, or to free Julian Assange, it doesn't mean people can't write their own letters. But it would be nice to be able to, for those people to then allow, let's say within our district or within our group, that they post those letters on a site so everybody can see what they're writing, besides what we're sending. That somehow, people might feel much more inclined to want to say stuff and feel that they have the protection of a group that they wouldn't have otherwise. And also that there's now other people can see what's being written, and so we can learn from that and be empowered even more.
And
So
I think you're
this, I
so
think,
dead right about the fact that being within a group, I think that makes people a lot braver, because I can tell you just from Assange activism, I get shit on all the time, constantly. I'm smeared. It's constant. But when you know you have a group backing you up, when you know you have people who are on your team and they're willing to step up to the plate for you if somebody comes at you, that's so much easier to do than to be like the lone wolf out there in the middle of a vast sea of propaganda trying to make noise.
Right. And I also see like AOC and Bernie and we see them being sort of co-opted and being taken over, but there really hasn't been any support from the other side. So maybe if there was a group like ours, or many groups like ours, that, what I'm thinking about, that maybe they'll be less likely to switch, that they'll see that you can live on the other side, that there is support on the other side. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and also you have the opportunity then to field other candidates.
Yes.
You all of a sudden now you can change the narrative, and again, you're relying on the creativity of the group to come up with ways to propel these ideas. And the one thing I didn't say is, we were talking about writing letters to politicians, but also media, and also you threaten to boycott their advertisers. And you don't even have to really boycott it. You just have to say you're going to boycott it and make a big deal out of it. Maybe you do, but when they pull that crap and they propagandize and we call them out on it and let people know about it, it's part of the process that we have to do. And
yeah, I think that there's no other way to do this than to make the people who have the power uncomfortable. I mean, AOC said it herself. She told you how to do it. And, she wants to pretend now like she's doing everything she's supposed to be doing, which everybody who is even almost remotely objective can see that she's not. But yeah, we have to make these people uncomfortable all day long. They should be worried about what you're saying about them, where you're saying it, when you're saying it, what you're doing. Are you doing a sit-in in their office? Because that'll make them uncomfortable. And of course, I'm not advocating for any kind of violence toward these people whatsoever at all. Never. But if they're walking down the street, heckle them, yell at them, tell them you want Medicare for all. Like it's hard as hell to get an invitation or a meeting with, an elected representative. So if you see them out, tell them, go up to them and tell them they're not doing their job. These are people who work for you. They work for you. You are their boss. Act like it. Hold them accountable. These people have been able to run amok for decades. They aren't doing shit for you. They work for corporations, and they're leaving you and your family to die. And they're supposed to be your employee. So act like that. Act like it. Be a boss. Go hold them accountable, make them uncomfortable, force them to do the things that you want. That's the only way anything ever gets done. It's not like we don't have historical reference for this. Anytime anything good has ever happened, it's been because of immense public pressure. That's just it. Right. That's how politics.
But we need people need a structure, and that's what I think I'm providing. Is here's a way to do it without having to go out in the street. Here's a way to do it without having to do it by yourself. And at the same time build some community, and all of a sudden have some solidarity with others, and be able to get something done. Because right now they can do whatever they want. There is no pressure. There is no pushback. I mean, there's people like you and there's other independent media, but that if I had a gripe, I mean, with some of the independent media, it's more about how to do what do we do to fix it. Now I think Jimmy did the thing with Force the Vote, which was a great idea, and you really exposed how bad our politicians are and how deaf they are to the left. But I think we need more discussion about that instead of there's actually some criticism lately on Jimmy Dore, but that he gives us a lot of stuff like what's wrong. And I all you can do is walk away being angry. But if we had some way to push back, we would feel so much better about it. So
I think that we've seen a lot of independent media doing some of that. I mean, Convo Couch organized the Fuck Censorship protests alongside our Free Assange protests. We've been working really hard on trying to build those movements. I mean, just on April 11th, we had almost 40 events in 30 countries across 5 continents. So, I mean, we're trying to build stuff there. But you're right. I think a lot of independent media is very content to sit behind their desk and not do anything. And they're content to just show you like, oh, look, a clip from MSNBC. Now I'm going to make snarky comments about it. Oh, look, a clip from CNN.
No, but that stuff's
now
important. Right. We need to know that information, but we can't just be
Sure.
can't just let it there.
Yeah,
So.
I just think that for me, I have more respect for the intelligence of my audience, that they know that CNN is shit. They know MSNBC is shit. I don't need to tell them that on a daily basis. We need to talk about issues that aren't being talked about and try to figure out ways to fix them. And I think that's a lot of what is missing. But I mean, there are some independent journalists doing amazing work right now. So
one of Nader's quotes that I like is that we have more problems than we deserve and more solutions that we never use.
Yeah.
And and I think if people had some say in this thing, that we could, and this could grow into something even bigger, where, like I said, maybe we don't need a president, or maybe the amount of power that a congressperson has is much too great, that people
or
can
the Senate,
right?
Abolish
that
the
we
Senate.
we can put a check on their power,
Yeah.
and we may start with something like Medicare for all and ending the wars and trying to figure out how best to address that. But in my own head, as I think about this, that there may come a time when we can just give them a laundry list, after we've won a number of things, and say this is what we want, and we don't have to sort of just go issue by issue. Yeah. I think in the beginning, maybe issue by issue might be the best thing.
We
for
need
us
some
to,
wins.
Yeah, we need some wins. You're right.
We need
Absolutely.
to show them that we have the power.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that that's important. Once we start getting a couple of wins under our belt, and they then start to recognize that, okay, they mean business, then I think that it becomes, there will be a power shift. And that's what's really necessary. And I love the idea. You're right. I love the idea of building a community. That's what we try to do. We're part of the MCSC network, which was started by Nico House. And we're very focused on like really diving in with our audience and getting to know them and building relationships with them. Because I think community is super important. And especially right now with the lockdowns and COVID and all of the stuff going on, it's really difficult to have those types of relationships with people. And so, reaching out in that way and having like, a built-in family, a built-in team system, that you're part of a crew and everybody's got your back. I think that that's so crucial moving forward, because it's really easy. I think like 70% of organizing is just convincing yourself not to give up. And when there's 100 other people that have your back, it's a lot easier to keep going, because there are other people who are depending on you, who support you, who are in this fight with you. And I think that that is really crucial in keeping people fighting for the things that they're fighting for, because it's hard. It's not easy to be an activist and organizer. It's not easy to do those things. And I think
you'll find that the people, your audience, they want to participate. They want to come up with a solution. They're motivated. They get it. And that's why, being able to talk with you is so important.
Yeah.
And the what?
They're smart as shit. They get it. They really get it. Yes.
Right. They really get it. And I would love to have conversations with them, because we're like-minded. We see how that works. And, we can change some people's minds. I don't think you're going to change a hardcore Democrat or a hardcore Republican, but there's a lot of people who are in between, that don't vote, that don't care, that don't think government has any bearing on their lives, and I think those are the people we might be able to convince to be part of something, and recognizing that we don't have to do it the way we've done it for so long.
Well, I think you're right. There are a lot of people who have just completely given up. They've been screwed over time and time again. They're out of energy. They don't really know how to even try to make a difference. And so they've really just given up. And if those people are approached with an idea like yours, or with, a group of people who are really engaging and trying to be a positive influence for involvement, I think that those people can 100% be brought back into the process. I mean, Bernie Sanders, as big of a schmuck as he is, he did a great job of getting people reinvigorated with the political process. I mean, he really did.
But those people were ready.
Yes.
Everybody's ready. It's
they're hungry for
the Tunisian fruit seller moment. We can. It's there. What's going to spark it. Yes. And hopefully it's not violent. Hopefully it's not, that we don't have to go that route. And I kind of see this as not violent, as a way we can do this smart. We can do it without, And that's the other thing about politicians. They have a lot of power, but they're not very smart. They're very dull-witted, and they really hide behind their power, and they, the language that some PR person told them to say. They have
everything is poll tested and committee approved.
Yeah.
They don't.
So
they
I mean,
don't
if
really
all of a
think
sudden you hit them with some, and that's the thing. We look at our foreign policy. We look at how we deal with domestic issues. They deal with it with clubs and bombs and guns. It's there's no finesse. There's no there's no real dialogue. They don't want to have dialogue. They just want to they just want their power, and they want us to shut up and get along. So
well,
and because they do lie to us, and you said that, it's really hard to believe anything they say.
Yes, and
even if they're telling us the truth. Yeah.
That's again where independent media is so crucial, because you're right. Even if they are telling us the truth, people should never. My jumping off point is they're lying to me, and then I'll see where we go from there. But I've noticed a lot of people, especially over COVID, are super pissed off at people who refuse to wear masks, but they're not angry at the system that has been so unreliable and so just complete constant lies, and there's no trust whatsoever. That's why those people don't want to wear masks, because you've completely turn them against the idea that their government is telling them the truth. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I mean, that to me, I totally understand that. I'm the same way. Everything I hear from CNN, MSNBC, or that comes from an official government source, I immediately assume that it's a lie. And then I go from there. And that's just the system that we have allowed to develop in this country. And that needs to be changed. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be accountability. If I had my way, there'd be 1,000 WikiLeaks across the globe, and people in power would be terrified to step out of line. They would be terrified to do anything wrong.
Right. And understand that if we do start to sort of gain some power, that I suspect they'll find some way to scare us again.
Of course.
There was a great interview with Taylor Hudak, right? I mean, she's part of.
I love Taylor. Yeah.
So she interviewed this doctor in England, Yaden. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't watched.
But he was talking about that there's now the discussion is about variants of the coronavirus, and he called it scare. It's a scare. He claims it's a scare tactic, that these variants are so close that your immune system would be able to identify it as the other virus. So he just felt that the whole coronavirus was overblown. That and was it a scare tactic? You don't know. We don't know if, look at weapons of mass destruction.
These are people who they hired the daughter of a diplomat to come to Congress and cry and tearfully profess that she had seen incubator babies being taken and thrown on the ground. And that was all bullshit. If they're willing to lie about that, they're willing to lie about anything, period. End of story. They're not to be trusted ever.
And that's why we have to sort of hold them, and we need, and the only way I know how to do it is with people, and keep it so it doesn't cost anything, and that it doesn't ask people to travel and stand in the rain or stand in the heat, whatever. They can do it, and try to keep it
decentralized. Don't let there become a power struggle. Because that's an easy way to get infiltrated. Look at Black Lives Matter.
Right. So even so, on the website I have list all the states, and the idea is each group is independent.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to control them. There'll be people within the group that might have some, in order to, you might get infiltrated. So maybe we have to come up with a plan to get rid of this person. But it really is decentralized. It's not it's not somebody telling people how to do. My hope is that they would start with Medicare for all. But as far as that goes, I'm not going to be able to control them.
Right.
I have sort of my list of things that I think should be done, which includes Julian. But the groups are there to do what the people want, and you could even have like on the website, let's say, and again, I don't have all the technology perfect, but it could be better, and hopefully somebody will come along with a much better plan than I have. But you could have this like a parking lot where you could have a list of ideas of what you want to address, and when it becomes enough people decide that they want to address this issue, then you address that issue, and and you make it. You let the people decide what's important and what we need to fix.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea. Okay, so do you want to tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter, first of all, and then where they can find the website so that they can check that out and see if it's something that they might want to get involved in?
Yeah, it's Skip Moyer is I come up, or Scrups at Scrups, I think, that comes up at is where I am. The website is a Google site. I did it because it's free. Now, as you can set up a free Google site, I wanted to leave everything as inexpensive, as free as it could be, and it was more of a model of what you could set up in your own district. So I don't have I know it's sites.google.com.
I have it up, I think, right
/ site / congressional watchdog.
I can link to it. I'll link to it in the show notes.
Can you link to it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then anybody that wants to check it out, it'll be down in the description box,
right,
underneath.
And
this
if
video.
you wanted, right, and if you wanted, let's say somebody likes the idea and they want to start their own group, because hopefully this, this kind of thing continues. You can send me an email,
okay.
And if you were like in Michigan's 5th district or something, I will just put your email, your name. You have to tell me the state, but I'll just put your email like underneath Michigan, so that people from that district can contact you if you don't, if that's what you want to do.
Nice. Yeah,
so,
I think that's a good way to connect people.
Yeah. So, my email is smoyer1406@comcast.net. So in case Google takes it down, I sometimes wonder that, Google realizes sees what's going on here. They might want to take the site down, since it is on their space. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something you need to watch out for, because Google is no friend to revolution.
No. Yeah. Right.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come and explain the website to us. I think it's something the audience will be interested in checking out more. Yeah, definitely everybody go check out the website. If you have questions, you can contact Skip either through his email or Twitter. We just saw people do sit-ins in AOC's office, or die-ins, I guess I should say. Those are effective. So this is another way that you can organize yourselves within your own communities. It's definitely a good thing to check out. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, Skip, to tell us about the website, and thanks everybody for watching, and we will catch you next time. Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.